This isn't just a story, it's the kind you'll think about at 2 a.m. If you're ready for the truth they never saw coming, hit that subscribe button now. And if something hits home, drop a like and tell me your thoughts in the comments, because stories like this deserve to be heard. Cheers to the Brooks family, my sister said, raising her crystal glass, her voice sweet as poison, except for Hannah Failure who only has money. Laughter rippled through the table. My parents joined in, heads nodding as if that sentence had been rehearsed, like a punchline in a family joke where I was always the joke. I smiled. Then I lifted my own glass, my voice low but steady. To the failure, who will stop paying for your wedding? Silence fell like shattered glass. That night didn't come out of nowhere, it was the final scene in a play I didn't audition for, but kept financing. I was done playing the sponsor to a family that never saw me as one of them. They thought I'd always stay silent, but that toast, that was the beginning of everything unraveling. My name is Hannah Brooks, I'm 36 years old, CEO of a thriving event planning firm in San Diego. My company has organized galas for politicians, charity auctions for celebrities, even weddings for families far wealthier than mine could ever dream of becoming. I've been featured in 3 magazines and recently made the Regional 40 Under 40 list. But at home, I'm not Hannah, the self-made woman, I'm just the one with money. My parents never said it directly, no, that would require honesty. Instead, they smiled politely at my accomplishments, then pivoted to Sophie's latest boyfriend or Lucas's new gym routine. They never came to my opening night when I launched my flagship office, but they made sure I paid for Sophie's business school tuition because she just needs a head start. Hannah, you already made it. It started small, a utility bill here, a short-term loan when Mr. Brooks's car broke down. The promises were always the same, we'll pay you back next month, sweetie. But next month never came, and I didn't push because I thought giving meant love. When Sophie turned 23 and decided to launch a home decor business, I was the one who covered the startup cost. $20,000 wired without question. It folded within 6 months. No one said thank you, not once. It became a routine, stepping in quietly every time something cracked in the Brooks household. My mom called it support. I called it survival because part of me still hoped that maybe if I gave enough they'd see me, not just the checkbook me. But they never did. To them, I was the fallback fund, the safety net, a wallet that didn't talk back. Even when I bought my own house, 3-bedroom ocean view, fully paid off, they barely blinked. My father walked through the door once, nodded, and said, "You should really get curtains for those windows." That's who I was to them, a provider, a background figure, never the one worth toasting. And yet, I kept showing up, birthdays, holidays, family barbecues, carrying wine, gifts and receipts. I convinced myself I belonged, that deep down they were proud of me in their own way, that maybe the love was just quiet. Then came the engagement, Sophie and Nathan, a glossy ring, a lavish plan, and a dozen texts from Mrs. Brooks starting with, "Sweetheart, I was wondering if you could help with." They didn't even ask, they expected, and I said, yes. Again, I should have known the price would be higher this time, not just financially, but emotionally, and the final payment was due at that dinner table. They never called it using me, they called it trust. "We just trust you so much with these things. Bella, you've always had a better head for money than any of us. You're so lucky you actually enjoy working." It sounded flattering, almost empowering, as if my independence was some magical personality trait they admired, as if the constant financial requests weren't withdrawals, but compliments. Sophie once joked, "You're like the family's secret angel investor." Everyone laughed, including me, but angels don't feel drained, and investors usually get returns. I began noticing a pattern. Every favor was wrapped in an emotional package. When Mr. Brooks's dental surgery cost $1,200, Mrs. Brooks called crying, saying his health depended on it. When Sophie wanted to rebrand her failed business as a wedding design studio, she said, "If you don't believe in me, who else will?" When Lucas got into a car accident, they asked me to just help him get back on his feet, even though he'd already totaled 2 other cars I helped pay for. Each plea came with guilt and sugar, like a bitter pill rolled in honey. They never asked if I could help, only when. The language was always the same. "This will be the last time, you're the only one we can count on. Sophie really needs this, she's not as strong as you." Some days I wondered if they even remembered I had bills, too. I had a mortgage once before I sold that property to get the firm through the pandemic. I had employees whose livelihoods depended on me meeting payroll. I had anxiety, exhaustion, and migraines that no one at home asked about. But when Sophie got accepted to the wedding planning certification course in New York, Mrs. Brooks called me like it was already decided. Bella, she needs to go, it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I told her you'd be thrilled to support her. Thrilled, that word sat in my throat like vinegar. Still, I wired the $8,700 tuition and another $2,000 for flights, hotels, and spending money. I even shipped her a brand new laptop with her initials engraved. The thank you I got was a blurry selfie of her holding the laptop captioned, "Got it." And 2 weeks later, a Venmo request for cocktail outfits needed for client networking. The thing is, it wasn't just the money, it was the way they made me feel responsible for their dreams, guilty for saying no, and invisible when I said yes, like my values stopped the moment I stopped giving. But I didn't stop, at least not yet. The engagement dinner was next. I should have felt excited. Instead, I felt like I was buying my seat at a table I was never really invited to. I didn't know it then, but I was approaching the edge, and someone was about to push me. The engagement dinner was meant to impress, that was the entire point, not to celebrate Sophie and Nathan, but to perform perfection. Mrs. Brooks had gone into full production mode weeks earlier. She texted me spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, vendor options. I didn't remember agreeing to plan the event, but somehow I was footing the bill and managing logistics. "This dinner matters," she said. "Nathan's family is old money, we can't look like amateurs." Every suggestion I made was gently overruled. The florist I recommended was too minimalist. The chef I preferred didn't do traditional dishes. Instead, Mom picked a private chef from Beverly Hills and a florist who charged triple but understood the aesthetic. Both sent their invoices to me. The dinner was held at my parents' home, a Spanish-style house in La Jolla. They'd had the patio resurfaced, new lighting, imported linens, all paid through my business card. I watched it unfold like I was watching someone else's event. Every detail executed to perfection, every moment curated to be admired. Candles flickered against crystal. Classical music floated from hidden speakers, and servers in white gloves passed hors d'oeuvres made from ingredients I couldn't pronounce, and through it all, not a single person mentioned my name. Sophie floated from table to table, glowing in a champagne silk dress I'd paid to have flown in from Barcelona. She was radiant, entirely unaware that the night was hers only in decoration because the narrative was about to change. Dinner came, laughter swelled, toasts began. Mr. Brooks stood up first. His voice was firm, practiced. He was always the showman at family events. "To my daughter Sophie," he said, lifting his glass, "and to Nathan, may your lives be as beautiful as tonight. Cheers." Applause. Then Sophie rose. The patio went silent. She held her glass high, smiling wide, her voice syrupy sweet. "To the Brooks family," she said, "to love, to legacy, to everything we've built together." Her eyes found mine across the table. She didn't blink. "And to everyone at this table," she added with a dramatic pause, "except for Hannah Failure, who only has money." Laughter exploded around her, sharp, cruel. My father chuckled, raising his glass again. Mrs. Brooks leaned toward a guest and whispered something behind her napkin. A few cousins laughed awkwardly, unsure if this was rehearsed or just reality. Nathan looked dazed. He hadn't expected this, but he didn't stop it either. I didn't flinch. Instead, I stood slowly, deliberately. I lifted my glass, waited for the laughter to subside. "To the failure," I said, my voice calm, cutting through the evening air like a blade. A few people looked up, startled. Sophie's smile faltered. "To the failure," I repeated, "who has paid for this entire night, the flowers, the champagne, the dress you're wearing, the chairs under your guests, the food on every single plate." Silence. I continued. "To the failure who funded Sophie's business, twice, received nothing in return. To the failure who paid Mr. Brooks's hospital bill, who covered Mrs. Brooks's flights to every doctor appointment she couldn't be bothered to schedule herself. To the failure who has been the family's invisible backbone for over a decade." Eyes widened, heads turned, Sophie's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wasn't finished. "To the failure," I said, placing my glass gently on the table, "who will no longer be paying for your wedding?" Then I sat down. No yelling, no tears, just silence, the kind of silence that chokes, that stings, that echoes. Mrs. Brooks's face went ghost pale. Mr. Brooks blinked, stunned. Nathan looked at Sophie like he just discovered she was a stranger, and Sophie, she was frozen. The silence was broken only by the clink of someone nervously setting down a fork. I stood again one last time. "Enjoy the evening," I said. "It's the last one you'll have on my tab." Then I turned and walked out of the garden. The heels I wore clicked against the stone path like a clock ticking toward midnight. No one followed me. Not that night. Not ever again in the same way. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already vibrating. 6 missed calls, 3 from Mrs. Brooks, 1 from Mr. Brooks, 2 from Sophie. I let them ring. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't replay the scene like some guilty confession. I sat in silence on my couch, barefoot, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, a home I bought with my own money earned from 16-hour days, 2 a.m. client calls, and weekends sacrificed for other people's weddings. I had never felt so alone, but for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of that feeling. By morning, I had 47 unread messages. Mrs. Brooks. Hannah, you made a scene. Nathan's family is humiliated. Sophie. I was joking. God, why are you so dramatic? Mr. Brooks. You better fix this before people start asking questions. Then came the threats. Sophie. If the wedding's ruined, it'll be your fault. Everyone will know. Mrs. Brooks. You broke your father's heart. His blood pressure is spiking. Are you trying to kill him? Mr. Brooks. Don't forget everything we've done for you. Done for me? I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and began gathering receipts, every transfer, every invoice, every proof of payment, painfully organized over years of blind loyalty. I made a spreadsheet titled, What I Paid for Love. I stared at it, half laughing. When I scrolled to the bottom, the number blinked back at me like a final insult. $132,845. That was the real cost of belonging, but the fallout wasn't just financial, it was relational. By the end of the week, my name had been quietly slandered through the family grapevine. A cousin texted, heard you snapped, people saying you ruined Sophie's future. I didn't respond. I was tired of explaining my humanity to people who only saw my utility. Nathan's family, however, didn't stay silent. A week later, Sophie called sobbing. They're calling off the wedding, she said. You destroyed everything. You happy now? I didn't say a word. I let her sit in the silence she once laughed through. But the worst blow came from Aunt Patricia, one of the few relatives I thought had always understood me. She messaged. I thought you were stronger than this, Hannah. You should have just smiled and kept the peace. That's when it hit me. They never saw my silence as kindness. They saw it as permission. Not anymore. I forwarded all communication to my lawyer the next morning. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a boundary, and this time, it would hold. I thought the worst had already happened. I thought the betrayal ended at Sophie's toast, but I was wrong. It started with a shoebox in the back of my storage closet. I was digging through old document stacks, forms, property files, past event receipts from my lawyer when I stumbled across it. Inside were envelopes, letters, and a thin binder labeled, College Planning, Grandma Margaret. My heart sank. My grandmother had passed away when I was 17. She was the only one in the family who ever saw me, not just as the smart one or the helper, but as Hannah. She used to send handwritten notes with small checks. This is for your dreams, baby girl, not for anyone else. I opened the binder. Tucked inside were bank slips, correspondence with her lawyer, and one shocking page, a notarized instruction to leave a trust in my name, $35,000, from the sale of her rental cabin in Idaho, intended solely for my college tuition and relocation costs. I never saw a cent of it. Instead, I remembered Mrs. Brooks telling me, Grandma didn't leave much, just some knickknacks and memories. I remembered Mr. Brooks saying, we had to sell the cabin quickly to cover some family debt. It wasn't worth keeping. Now I knew the truth. They sold it, they took the money, and they never said a word. I sat on the floor for nearly an hour staring at that paper, not just stunned by the theft, but by the erasure. They had stolen my grandmother's final gift, her legacy, her way of saying, I believe in you. And they used it to pay off a credit card. I called my lawyer immediately. When I showed her the binder, she didn't even hesitate. You have a case, she said. This is documented misappropriation of inheritance funds. A few days later, she sent a formal letter to my parents. It wasn't threatening, it was precise. We outlined the funds, the legal documents, and the timeline. We requested a full accounting of the trust and demanded restitution, or we would pursue a civil claim. They didn't reply, but I heard from Sophie. She left me a voicemail, voice trembling with forced calm. Hannah, I didn't know about the trust, okay? Don't punish me for their mistake. Just don't take this further. You'll destroy what's left of the family. I didn't respond because it wasn't me who destroyed it. It was them when they chose money over memory, image over integrity. That moment holding that paper, I realized something deeper than anger. They hadn't just stolen money. They had stolen my right to know that someone once fought for me. But now I was fighting for myself, and this time I had proof. It's been 18 months since that dinner, 18 months since I stood up, lifted a glass, and shattered the illusion of what my family was. what I thought it was. The legal case moved slowly but surely. My lawyer filed a formal complaint regarding the misappropriated inheritance. We never had to go to court. My parents, likely fearing public embarrassment more than justice, settled quietly. I recovered just over $35,000 plus a written acknowledgement that the trust had been redirected inappropriately. They called it a miscommunication, I called it theft, but the real victory wasn't financial, it was emotional. I no longer wake up with a pit in my stomach when I see a message from Mrs. Brooks. I no longer scan every family event invitation wondering how much they'll ask for this time. I no longer sit at the far end of any table trying to shrink myself into silence. I redecorated my apartment, took down the old family photos, not out of spite, but for space to breathe, to build something that reflected me. On one wall now hangs a framed copy of Grandma Margaret's note, "This is for your dreams, baby girl, not for anyone else." It reminds me that once someone believed in me without condition. I don't talk to Sophie anymore. She tried first with anger, then with guilt, and finally with guilt disguised as nostalgia. Remember when we made blanket forts in the living room? You're still my sister, but I miss you, led back to another ask. Help with a lease, co-sign a business loan, just a little support while I get back on my feet. Every olive branch came with a price tag. I declined all of them. My boundary wasn't temporary, it was permanent. My parents, they pretend nothing happened. They still send out family Christmas cards with me cropped out. I hear they tell people I'm just busy with work. That's fine. Let them tell whatever story they need to sleep at night. I sleep just fine. And my business, it's thriving. When I stopped pouring money into people who never appreciated it, I invested in my staff, in better tools, in myself. We booked 2 international events this year. We're expanding into New York. I've started seeing someone, too. His name is Daniel. He's a structural engineer who restores historic buildings. He's quiet, grounded, and the first person who has ever told me, "You don't have to earn my respect. You already have it." Sometimes I still feel the echo of it all, the silence at that table, the ache in my chest, the years I spent trying to buy their love, but then I remember the strength it took to say enough, to walk away, to become my own advocate, to toast to myself, because I'm not the failure. I was just the only one willing to carry everyone else, and when I stopped, the whole illusion collapsed. So, here's my final toast, to the girl who thought love had to be earned, to the woman who learned it never did, to the freedom that came from being loved by the wrong people, but from finally loving myself enough to walk away. Cheers. Hannah, you saved yourself, and you didn't owe them anything. And if you think this story hit deep, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe now, before you miss it. And if this made you feel something, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it too.